The newspapers of Constantinople are full of reports of victories on the Western Front and in the European theater. The Germans have scored a major victory in Picardy, devastating the French army there. Austrian forces have moved up to Burgundy underneath the command of General Conrad and now threaten the very outskirts of Paris. The Kriegsmarine now has full control of the British islands as the entire waters encircling the island are under the dominion of the German forces. No longer is Britain in command of the seas, but Germany now controls the northern Atlantic, and there's very little that the Americans and the British can do about that fact. Things look quite grim for the Entente Cordiale, and now cries of peace are heard in the Parliament buildings of London as well as on the streets of Paris as the war weariness sets in. The Italians have fought mightily in this fight with great military strength, and they're quite content with their achievements, but they look towards perhaps the next war and think perhaps they shall not align themselves with the Western powers of Britain, France, and America, but rather perhaps turn their attention with a new friendship northwards towards Germany and perhaps Austria as well. Things look grim for the Entente Cordiale, and though they have fought heroically and well, there were certain defeats that they just could not recover from, leading to perhaps what is going to be a Central Powers victory. The Ottoman nation itself is not doing as well as it could. It has lost its eastern holdings of Afghanistan and Persia to the deft British forces' attacks into those territories, and now it only controls Sevastopol, Kazakhstan, and Arabia. And its once mighty force that stretched all the way from Bulgaria all the way through to Persia and Afghanistan has now been condensed slightly with the advance of the British forces there, and now with the arrival of armored units in India as well, the Ottomans find themselves under great pressure. But the reason being is because the Sultan's military advisors advised against pushing towards India. Though it is the crown jewel of the Empire of Britain, at the end of the day, it would be a bit of an overstretch for the Ottoman forces, and they thought perhaps going a little bit closer to home and in the capture of Egypt would be a greater crown jewel to the Ottoman throne than India would be. Egypt provides itself with the access to the Suez Canal and the delightful Nile, and that would be a great center of trade for the Ottoman Empire as they become the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa as well, and also control the trade routes between the Mediterranean seas and the Indian Ocean. They think perhaps this would be a greater advancement towards the empire as a sick man of Europe perhaps into becoming once again a renewed new Ottoman Empire, new Turkish Empire that could stand the test of time and survive to perhaps the next century. Things don't look great for the Ottoman forces in the Eastern Theater, but ultimately they are now poised to capture Egypt, or at least to contest Egypt with potentially capturing it further down the track. Welcome all to Operation Schlieffen. I'm playing as the Ottoman forces here underneath the Central Powers, and this is perhaps going to be the last turn we see with these guys. We'll see how things go and if the Entente Cordiale decide to surrender or not. They have fought well and they've fought bravely, and it is just a slight oversight in the fact of London being left open for a German invasion that allowed us to get to this point. The consensus seemed to have been at the time that the Central Powers were on the ropes and were not doing quite well, and I would say that they weren't doing quite well as well. We had some strength going here, but with our attention fully focused on crushing Russia once and for all, the French had our entire center exposed, and with our investment into a bit of a battle fleet for the Germans, things looked quite grim for the German forces. But it was that very investment of a bit of a battle fleet as well as a couple transports that allowed us to take advantage of the London theater and allowed us to capture that territory, and thereby giving us that win that we managed to squeak in there. And it was not without losses, and surprisingly, it was only London that could have been captured this way, because in this game, it is only Britain that has two manufacturing centers, one in London and one in India. And the very fact that the Ottomans were pushing hard towards India meant that the British were putting more attention into this theater, meaning that this theater was left wide open. And so that meant that that meant that it gave us the opportunity to make an invasion here and capture London, and not without losses, of course, too. We lost the transport, and I think we were left with only 2 damaged battleships by the time all was said and done. But ultimately, we were barely squeaked in a victory, but that was just enough to give a serious disadvantage to the Entente. And as Davik said in his channel, that was something like an income discrepancy there of $90 lost over a period of several turns. And they just couldn't recover from that. So it was one of those unfortunate oversights that tipped the balance of the game. I've often said in other videos that it's one of those things that if there's something devastatingly big like that, sometimes I'm of a mind to be like, hey, let's rewind that a little bit and let's just go on otherwise, just because we want the game to keep on going in a way. But nonetheless, it was one of those things that because the Central Powers are in such a bad state, then it seemed to be that even with the capture of London, victory was not 100% certain because of how well my opponents are playing with the French, the Italians, and even the Russians, how well they're doing, despite the Russians being constantly battered by some pretty bad dice rolls continuously turn after turn. But overall, I believe that my opponents have done fantastically well, and though they've had some unfortunate luck here and there, specifically in the case of London, they've actually pulled off quite a success as far as I'm concerned. It took me 12 turns to get to this point, and usually these games are done a little bit sooner than that as far as I'm concerned. So I think that's a testament to how well they played, that despite that great loss of London, they still managed to do quite well for themselves and survive this long. So well done, you guys. I really do appreciate you playing with me. I really do appreciate what kind of characters you are. You've been a pleasure to play against and with. I will probably do a review video later on about the entire game once we call it a day, and then I'll go over some more details of strategy, some thoughts I have, but this is all from the perspective of an amateur. I don't have as many games under my belt as I would like, and there's I don't know how many games, 8 games under my belt, but those would be years ago at this point. So these are all just my perspectives from. I consider myself still a bumbling amateur. But nonetheless, I'll do a little strategy video later on just to kind of talk about a debriefing video talking about some of the interesting things that occurred. Let's go into the Ottoman turn, seeing as this video has gone on long enough. We have 24 bucks, 4 infantry, 2 aircraft. Let's go to our moves. Infantry from Arabia to Transjordan. From Transjordan, 5 tanks, 8 infantry, 6 artillery, 1 fighter going to Egypt. 2 infantry from Smyrna to Transjordan, 3 from Constantinople to Smyrna. On this side we have 1 infantry going northwards from Mesopotamia to Sevastopol, 5 infantry from Ankara to Mesopotamia, and 2 artillery, 3 infantry from Constantinople to Ankara. And that should do it for moves. Let's go on to battles. We have over here our battles laid out for Egypt. The expected defense is 8 hits, and our attacks are roughly 8 hits as well. It all depends on how the air battle goes. If they win the air battle, that bumps us up to 9. If we win the air battle, that bumps us up to 9 as well. So we'll have to see how that goes. Let's roll some dice here for the air supremacy round. Let's do the attacker first. 5, that's a miss. Defender, miss. Attacker, miss. Defender, hit. So we have lost our Air Force. That's one thing I would say, that the entire game, my Air Force has performed well below average, and I've lost every air fight I've ever gotten into the entire game. So that bumps them up to about 9 hits expected. All right, let's roll for the rest of it. We have 6 artillery at 3 or less. We have 2 hits, so that is below average. We were expecting 3, we got 2. Then we have these 6 infantry supported. Here we expect 3 hits. We've got 3 hits, so we've got our average there as well. Or as well, we've still a little bit below average. We have 2 unsupported infantry. 1 hit, that's a surprise. That brings us up to where we should be. And then we have 5 infantry here. 5 tanks rather at 2. With 2 hits, so that's again not too bad. So all in all, we have for our side 2, there's 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got exactly our average with 8 hits, so that's nice. Now let's look to the defense. I forgot to leave their fighter there, and now these guys move up to here. So there should be about 9 hits expected on their end of things. So we've got the 4 artillery at 4 with 3 hits. So that's quite nice. A very tidy sum. We have the strafing run, a hit. Alright, so that's looking quite tidy for them. And now we have 12 dice, I believe. Let me double check. It's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's about 6 hits right here. I think that's more than 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all in all, they've scored 7 here, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they expected 9, and instead they've got 11. All right, so we take a look at the board here now. I'm going to assume they're going to take off these guys here first, the Italians. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That seems about right. So 1 American down, 3 British, and 4 Italian. If I'm wrong in this one, let me know, but that seems to be logical because that way the artillery pair up with them nicely. And on our end, because they scored 11 hits from an expected 9, on our end we have 5 tanks, so that drops us down to 6 hits left over. 6 hits, that's not very nice of them, but we're left with 2 infantry left over there. Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast. We lost a little bit more than we expected. Let's see. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's the way she goes. Yeah. Well, yeah, battles can go both ways. I can't always get luck on my side. Eventually luck's going to have to go the other direction. But we've contested the state of Egypt now, and we have a few units here remaining. Likely we're going to expect a counterattack from our opponent's next turn. But none to worry, that's just the way she goes. And that concludes the Ottoman turn. We just place our units on the board here. We have 4 infantry, we have 2 aircraft, and for income, I believe our income, I should quickly double check that, but we have 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 bucks. Is it 24? Should be less than that. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 bucks. Maybe, no, never mind, because both those territories up here are contested. Yeah, so it is 24 bucks. There we have it, gentlemen. Thank you all for watching. Cheers.